All right. Hello, everybody. My name's Mia, and I work at the Military Affairs and Veterans Resource Center here at NSU. And for our speaker series today, we have Dr. Williams, and I know he has a really cool topic for us today, psychology and how that affects personal finance. I know I'm really looking forward to it because I'm a college student, I'm broke, and I need to know how to manage my finances.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Good to have you guys here with me today. I'm going to share my screen first. I guess you can give me permission to share. Have you been able to do that? Yes, you have. All right. So, okay. Okay, can you see this? Just give me a thumbs up. You can see this? Yeah, thank you. All right. So today I decided to discuss something that's very, very important, psychology and investing. And so I'm happy that you guys are here. I attended a conference yesterday and I was taken by the topic and linked it. I've always been fascinated with psychology and investment, but I decided to take this and use it. So some of the two slides I have here are taken from a seminar by Barron's held yesterday, and then I built on top of it and used some of the knowledge. So the first one is what we're talking about of psychology of money is the application of psychology to personal finance. And everybody's relationship with money. Isn't that funny? We always talk about relationship to our parents and our children and our friends. But did we ever talk about a relationship with money? How do we feel about money? How do we behave? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And the author brought up some things about moneygrams and flashpoints and money scripts. I'll break those down for you as we go along. But it set the stage, and I want you to see the stage here, that being rich in America is rare. Take that for, remember that. So, we have about 5 million people that have over $1 million worth of assets. But then how many people live here? 330 million people. So we don't, just want you to be aware that the number of very wealthy people are not that many. And wealth means stocks, bonds, cash, real estate, business, retirement funds, and so on. And of course, you can't start without talking about the great Warren Buffett. And he's the guy that's presently worth over $85 billion. And he made a big chunk of it, 84.2, after he was 50 years old. That's a very important point. Money isn't made very easily when you're young. You have to wait, let it work, and then it'll come in. And he said 81.5 million came after he was qualified for Social Security. That's a strange comparison. A billionaire isn't looking for Social Security. All right. He started investing at 10 years, and by year 30, he was worth $1 million equivalent. And he said, if you were to take 25,000 today, and you are 30 and you run it for probably 20 plus years at 22% a year, you will get around 11.9 million. So wait a minute. Warren Buffett had roughly the same time, and look, he converted it to so much more. So there's some other things going on in the world of making money. 99.9% less than actual net worth. So there's something going on there when you take money and work it, and how can you create wealth? Now, this is where I come in. I decided to break it down a little bit further. So your relationship with money. How do you feel about money? This is such an important question. What do you feel about money? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Does it mean anything to you? We have some other slides down. How do you behave with money? Do you waste it? Do you hoard it? What do you do with it? So psychology is really what drives those two comments. Psychology influences your wealth being. So your mind will help you to determine how much wealth you have. Okay? So don't forget that. Your mind psychology will help. So here's the first part that I broke down. It says historical relationships with money. What we learned when we were growing up. So a lot of the learnings that you have about money is when you were small. What did your parents tell you? And you may have made some very important comments about when you were under 10, 4, 5, 6 years old. Some people will tell you. And so a very common statement that parents will say is money does not grow on tree. You've heard that one, right? Money does not grow on tree. And so It simply means you got to work for it. So you grow up learning that you got to work for your money. Other people's attitude. The point of that, though, is that it's other people's attitude influencing your attitude. So from the time you were smaller, they tell you money is really they give you some advice about money. The one that I got when I was small was my dad says never borrow. And I thought that was weird. How do you know never borrow? And I took that until I became much older. Then I realized, wait a minute. If you don't borrow, you cannot build wealth a little more quickly. So I had to question what I was told. So the next piece is the financial drama. You know, if drama can impact your lives, and the first component of it is parents could, example is parents could argue about money, and you live in that setting. They're always arguing, or families arguing about money, and that drama influences your behavior and make you say, you know what? I want to have enough money that I don't have to be fighting and arguing with people. So that's the key piece. Then the next one is taking drama to a higher level, financial trauma. Trauma means that you really did not have much money. Like one example given by our speaker yesterday was the parents took all the money and bought luxurious items, and they didn't even pay her college fund, even though it was saved. So they changed along the way. And so she said, you know what? I'm going to college one way or the other, and I will make my money. And so she paid her way through college, and she loved her parents, but they were using the money for other things. No, she wasn't poor. They just took the money and used it for other things. The other one, financial trauma, could be poverty. Poverty is a trauma. You all agree with that? Poverty is a trauma. You don't have the basics of life. And so you grew up saying, you know what? My parents were poor, but I will never be poor. And I will do something in my control to make money. So that's what I'm linking your psychology with your behavior. So attitudes that build over time about money is good, money is bad. The next one is I don't care about money. Have you ever heard some people say, I don't care about money? Okay. The other one is a little deeper, money worshiping. I eat, sleep, dream, and I die about, all I do is I think about money all day long. Money is, I don't have anything else in my mind. That could be, again, money status. Your wealth worth is your net worth. You got to watch that. I'm playing with words. Your wealth worth is not your total net worth. Your net worth is more than money. It's happiness, all kinds of less stress and the whole work. But if you link everything to money, that's what you get. Now, money vigilance is not the same as money worshiping, but they go together to some degree. You spend every waking day of your life going after making more. And that's a real concern also. So every human being has a different set of attitudes about money, and you have to determine what your attitudes are. You need to figure what they are. All right, so beliefs and behaviors with money. Early experiences influence your belief and behavior. So you need to know first of all, what are your attitudes and behaviors? And then you need to know where they started. So here's an example. Money root. Where did it start? Money is not important. Learn from father, for example. So you learn all your life from small. Don't worry about money. Worry about other things. Then you start to find yourself in financial difficulties. So guess what you do? You need to ask, what's going on here? Then you say, oh, Dad used to tell us that money is not important. So guess what that does for you? It gives you a realization where the attitude came from, and then you have to say, all right, I love my dad and my parents, but I'm going to be different. Then you make the change. Does that make sense? You need to question all your attitudes about money, and they come from your friends, your parents, your church, and you need to determine what's going to be the attitude for you. Don't forget, you're talking about you. All right, so you need to realize where your attitudes came from and then work to change them. I always tell people, if your parents are poor, don't beat them up. If your parents didn't do very well, don't talk bad about them. They did probably the best they could do with the hand they've got. But if they send you to college and they empower you with knowledge, then you should break the cycle of poverty. You guys agree with that? That's the advice we really should give. All right. So wealth building. This is a very important set of points. You cannot build wealth without having savings. You may could, but it's a little bit harder. So you need to save so you could invest. And generally, that's a start. So you need to save. While in college, you don't have to save a whole bunch, but learn to save a little bit at a time. So when you're in college, learn to save a few bucks at a time. And all you're doing is to get the discipline. The discipline of saving is so critical. All right. So keep that in mind. That's the first lesson for college students. Save is an art, is a discipline, and you need to put some. Even if you are living on a shoestring, still learn to put $5 and $10 aside a week or whatever you can, and just get the discipline. Now, invest your money. You don't pile it up in the bank. You got to put it to work. You buy stocks, you buy a bond. I said take the plunge. Take the plunge means take a risk, correct? Investing doesn't guarantee anything. You got to put in the money and buy the apartment and see that the price goes up, or buy the stock and hope that it increases. Take the plunge is take the risk, and no risk, no return. Now, the third one is a good one. Don't make all the money, then you spend it out at the end. You have to what? Keep tabs on your investment, and you use some to live, but you have to always have your investment working for you. So 3 parts: save, invest your money, and stay invested. All right? Do not get out after you made it, because if you get out, what will happen? You won't have anything else coming in. You'll start to dip in and use it. Okay, so it's a really good advice. Let me see what that's doing in the middle. Let's talk about the Warren Buffett guy. As I told you, 84 billion. He had a roughly 22% return a year. By the way, the stock market only gives about 12 to maybe 15% a year. So he was beating the stock market on an annual basis. Millionaire by 30, repeat that story I just took from the other slide, and I made it bigger for you to see that Mr. Buffett took his money and made billions, and the typical person would make millions. Millions are still good. But there's more going on with Mr. Buffett, and we need to figure out a little bit more. So here's some characteristics of Mr. Buffett. No lifestyle creep. I don't want to say you should not do this, but Mr. Buffett lives a very humble lifestyle. He still has his home that he had for years. And I put a picture on the top, somewhere in there, him drinking Coca-Cola. He's still the same fellow that we know, and he's full. I mean, he got more money you could even have. All right, the next one is a good one that a lot of people don't like to do. You get the degree and you stop learning. He reads 5 to 6 hours a day to figure out how the world is working, and that helps him to build, and he stays financially educated. You might say, Warren Buffett reading so much, why does he need to? Well, he feels that you need to have the compounding effect of learning. That means you never stop learning. You know that phrase? That's another lesson we need to learn. You don't get the degree, then you stop learning. You have to continue continuous improvement. And so that's a good lesson. So you never stop learning. And even Warren, who you think never need another penny in his life, he's still reading and learning, trying to stay mentally alert, and also to keep his investments going. Nice story. So this is one of the things we encourage, a hedonic treadmill of life. You see, I'm mixing psychology with finance. This is going together. Hedonic treadmill means you set a goal, you work hard to achieve it. When you get it, you celebrate, then you set another one, and you keep on going, and you do this all your life. Isn't that amazing? So your goal, Mia, is to get your degree, right? And when you accomplish that goal, you're happy, big celebrations of graduation. Then you go set another goal, then you do another one. And for the older veterans that might be listening to me, I would like them to understand that age is not a limit to setting goals. In fact, we're starting to see that 65-year-olds should set new goals to reach 85. You don't just sit around. You need to say, what can I do at 65 to reach 85? And if you reach 85, maybe you need to set some for 90, right? But you don't just sit around and wait for death to come. You set goals and go do them. Goals do not mean you have to go try to make $1 billion in 5 years. But it means to go do things, go travel, go do something with your life. So that's finance blended in with psychology. Now, this is a very important piece. Know your past self, your present self, and your future self. This is a very important slide. Think about yourself when you were 5 years old or 10 years old. Who were you? You're a teenager. That's your past self, right? And then how did that impact how did you think about money in your past self? So I like this little cartoon here. Your present self is asking your past self about life, and you keep on doing it. So who were you when you were 15? Who were you when you were 10? What kind of life did you live? What kind of money life did you live? Most of us at 5 to 10 years old were looking for a little $20, or that's a lot, $5 to go buy ice cream or buy pizza or something, right? But in those times, most of your life were not thinking about investments. They were more about what? Shopping. So by the time you reach 20 to 25, you almost have a PhD in shopping, right? But we want you to have a PhD in money management. So you need to figure out more than shopping. You need to learn how to invest. So your present self right now, most of you are, like the audience might be college students. Who are you right now? Who are you? What is your present money self? Well, most people will tell me my present money self is I'm a broke college student. I'm just working paycheck to paycheck. Right, Mia? And so we have to just survive, right? And that's fine. So you look at yourself in the mirror and be proud of who you are. Nothing is wrong with saying I'm living paycheck to paycheck today. That's your doing human investment, correct? You're building your worth. But later on, you will build and create the other kinds of financial investments. Here is the future self. That's the hard one. What will you be like my age, 65, Mia? When you get to 60 plus, what will you be like? Math is the same thing. What will you be like? Well, this is such a hard thing for us to do. We don't. By the way, when I was 25 years old, maybe I thought what I wanted to be at 65, but I never gave it much credence, right? I was crunching like crazy. Now, psychology tells you if you could look back, you should look forward. So I don't know if you guys ever seen an app where they would put your present picture in there, then they will tell you, let it age. I've seen my grandkids do it all the time. It's kind of weird to see yourself. No, I don't worry about it anymore because I'm already 65. But if he put me in at I'm 66 now. If you put it in, what will I look like at 85? It tells a story. You can't hide from it. So it says college students should probably take that app and play with it and say, what would I look like when I am 65 or when I need retirement? Well, the good old days when you never had app, what would you say? Look at your parents, look at your grandparents. That's what you will be like. And so you kind of say, I would look like grandma or granddaddy. Now the question, that's the physical parents. Now you need to look at your grandparents' money position. So do you want to be like them? Are they wealthy? Are they poor? Then you have to figure the finance component of that story, okay? The psychological story here is called affective forecasting, meaning you want to see what you look like in the future, okay? So we add the psychological flavor. So here is a very important question that's hard to answer. What is your relationship with your future self? Imagine Mia today, this is who you are. Have you ever thought about what you will be when you reach retirement age? I mean, literally say, what emotional connection will I have with myself today? Many times, as I told you just now, we don't want to think about ourselves in the future. That's kind of like too far away. I want to live for today. But I would recommend you stop and think. One way to answer that question is look at how your mommy and your grandparents behave now. Believe it or not, you will be almost the same as they are. It's disgusting sometimes, but it's real that you might behave just like what your parents are behaving right now, or maybe a little more technologically different, but you will have some similar attitudes. So you look at them closely and say, you know what? My mommy is 50 something, my grandmother is maybe 70 something. That's what I will be like when I get older. So that's your emotional connection. Try to figure it out. Your money connection is critical. You need to say, do I have enough money, or I have enough money when I'm 65 to retire? Now, that last statement is true. We are not good at forecasting a future. We do not like to do this exercise. What do we like to do? Live day to day. Isn't that correct? It's so much easier to live day to day. Your brain doesn't hurt as much. You just put food on the table. But that's not how we recommend people do. We want you to go into the future. All right. So your emotional and financial goals. You must aspire to your emotional goals. Emotional goals could be happiness, less stress. Those are emotional goals. And financial goals are called wealth creation. So you see, I list some here: happiness, less stress, good relationship with family and friends, then, of course, good relationship with money. Now, you might say, does money make me happy? That's the relationship. Do you guys ever thought about having a relationship with money? That sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? How do you have a relationship with your money? You should have a relationship with your money. You work hard for the money in this wallet. So you need to make sure that you spend it as wisely as you can. So you should create all right. I have an emotional connection with my wallet. I don't try to empty it as quickly as possible. How about that? That's an emotional relationship. That ties in with my attitude and my belief. All right. The only time I break that is when I get to my guitars. Then I get a little kind of nutty. But other than that, you keep a good tabs on your money. Does money make you happy? Some people it does, some of them not. Now, here's something that we never talk about. Write down your emotional goals, and don't ever forget that what you have in your mind at 20, your goals, emotional goals. What level of happiness do I want to be? What level of stress? What relationships do I want to have? We never ask people to write these things down. Word of caution: whenever you write these things down, do not leave it in public view for the whole world to see. Does that make sense? Have your special diary, have your special file in your computer, and keep those things. Those are for you, not for the world to see. You could share them with selected people. Financial goals: make aspirational goals. Try to go above and beyond what you would normally think. So you could say, I want to have $1 million worth of net worth by the time I'm 65. That's a good goal. It's not you could say, hey, I want to make 5 million or 3 million. Make sure you do that. So the next one is goals can be based on time. So in my case, I'm around 66. I would say I would make a goal up to 85. That's not a bad thing for a guy like me to think another 10, 15, 10 plus years, right? 65, 75, 85, 20 years. All right. So you need to make goals. Goals are linked, but don't forget and ever forget that goals change over time. So when you're 20, you have different goals, correct? When you're 50, you have different goals. And when you are 70, you have way different goals. So don't just get used to that. Now, you need to know the I, and you need to know yourself from a third person. So this is a weird thing. You need to talk to yourself. Now, whenever you tell people about talking to the self, they say, are you getting crazy? How should I be talking to myself? But can you talk to yourself, Mia? We do it all the time, don't we? We talk to ourselves all the time. We're always having conversation with ourselves. So I want you people never to forget that. So you could talk about, what do I want? What are my emotional goals? What are my financial goals? Now, the next one is about talking to yourself in the third person. Like, what do others think of me? Or what, if I were to look at myself from the outside, what do I think of that person that I'm watching? So you have to say, I want to keep an eye on myself, but like from a third person looking at me from the other side. Another way to look at that is, what do your friends see in you? All right. So you need to talk to yourself about these things. Now, I must make a funny joke about this. Most people, when they talk to themselves in public, people will say, what's wrong with that person, right? So I don't recommend you go out talking to yourself verbally. You must talk to yourself when you have your own private moments, right? You get up, you meditate, you talk to yourself. I go riding a lot. I ride my bicycle a lot. I do talk to myself a lot while I'm riding out in the Everglades. So you find quiet time, talk to yourself. Talking does not mean verbalizing. It means mentally having this discussion about who am I and what do others think of me and where do I want to go. All right, younger generation. You know, Mia, you could correct me if this is true or give a comment. Younger generations are very inclined to want to have the power to make changes in the world. And therefore, they look at the things that make the world a better place, like sustainability, environmental protection and preservation, political transparency. You're always very eager to make sure the world is a better place. And money is also important, maybe, but not as high as your parents' generation. They came off the World War II and a Great Recession and really hard times. So they were always trying to make a buck, and they work hard. The grandparents, especially, and maybe the parents too. Now, I will never say money is not important for the younger generation, but we've been finding out that the younger generation have a more interest in changing the world. Do you agree with that, Mia? Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So I think this is a very important thing for young people to see, and I think young veterans, have the same attitude. They've gone out, they've done their share for the society, and now they come back in, and they definitely want to help the world. Uh, Matt, if you want to make a comment on that, you sure can. You agree with me on that? That all the young people will. Okay, jump in whenever you want. All right, money and happiness. This is always the hottest topic in personal finance. More money, more happiness. What do you think? The answer says yeah, yes, and no, up to a point. Up to about 75,000, the answer is a positive correlation. After 75,000, the correlation is not strong anymore. So your happiness after 75 would be time versus money. I want time for myself, for my family. I don't mind taking my time and put money to a cause, like giving Nova a little donation or giving poor people a little help. Saving for a goal is always giving people with money a little more happiness. I'm going to save money to do a project, to do something, especially if good. And I'll tell you, having an experience is probably better than having a product in the house. Like you got two cars. Buying a third car is not the same as traveling to the pyramids of Egypt to see how those people built those things. You understand? So people get more happiness from experiences than just having things in the house. That's a difference. So as you get more money, you tend to change. Now, here are some pieces that I want you to get. Managing your financial life. You need to revisit your financial life regularly. Keep that relationship with your money. Don't just have it and forget it. If you have a savings, you have to determine, I'm doing well with it. If I have stocks, do I change and change them? You have to. COVID definitely increased savings. Many people were very concerned and they kept a little money, but it also gave people time to look at their spending. They had no choice. Do you agree with that? If you don't have money, you have to adjust your spending. And that in itself is a very good thing because it helped people at least to revisit their budgeting, and hopefully that will make them better savers and better investors. We'll see. So spending is based on your values. Your value system will determine how you spend your money. I know somebody that says, I will die and leave everything, so I spend everything. Now, I don't want you to totally agree with that. You will die and leave everything. That's a normal behavior, but that doesn't mean you should spend everything. Who should get some of your wealth if you create some?
The loved ones you care about.
The loved ones or whoever you think needs it to carry on. Some people donate it to universities, a little bit here and a little bit there, to causes, cancer, research, and so on, right? So you have to think about your value in life. Now, I don't want you to take this totally wrong. There are many parents that say that I will try to spend all my money before I leave and I'll give my children a little bit, not a huge amount of it. So you have to know the values you have and the values your parents have and how you are going to build your wealth, financial as well as emotional wealth. All right, how do wealthy people spend their time? I bring this here just to add it in. Not as much on social media, not as much on politics. 10 to 11 hours per month learning about investments. They're always thinking about where their money is going. Actively engage with their money, not obsessed with money. That's a comment that we found out. They care for it. They care like care for family. Money is like a family member, and they have a respect for it. So they don't take it nonchalantly. They take it with like, this is a job. I have to manage it. Okay. So you got your money, you learn how to manage it, you respect it, but you don't go crazy about it. You know, I always say that when you meet very wealthy people, you don't even know they are wealthy. You ever heard that phrase? They don't need to flaunt it. They have what they have, and they just live their lives. All right, attitudes to gain and loss. This is something with psychology. When you lose, the pain is twice the magnitude as when you gain. Isn't that amazing? You lose $500, the pain is twice as large in magnitude as if you gain $500. So we don't like to lose. That's what it says, right? So essentially, we do not like to lose. We need to learn to sell a losing investment, and that's part of the thing. What do we do with the losing investment? Because we don't want to lose. We hold on to it till we lose completely. You have to know how many dollars you want to lose. And so you remember the GameStop investment craziness that took place over the last month or two? Some people made tons of money. We have an example of a lady cashed out everything, $250,000. The money went to $11 million, and the person held on. And when it dropped to $1 million, then she said, you know what, I better cash out. But still made a lot, correct? But if they had sold at 11 million, oh my goodness. But the challenge, what was that person hoping? It's going to go to 20 million, and the person held on. We call that holding on too long, but at least they got out and made a bunch. So getting rid of a losing investment is important. All right, rule of thumb. This is very important. This again, if you got more time, you don't need a very high return to reach your final goal. But for example, if you start at 25, you could get a lower return per year to reach $1 million by 65. But if you start at 45, you will need a much higher return per year to get there because the time period is shorter. From 25 to 65, how many years do you have? Whopping 40 years, correct? But from 45 after what? Yeah, 40 years. But from 45 to 65, you only got 20 years. So you need to get a much higher return to make your goal of $1 million. All right, real satisfaction in finances. By the way, when you use the word satisfaction, I'm linking happiness with money. It says you set a money goal, you do everything you can to make it happen. Then when you achieve it, we call it the sweet spot, you're celebrating, you're happy, then you start another one. Isn't that nice? You see what Maxwell Maltz has written? He's one of the greatest gurus in personal development. We find no real satisfaction or happiness in life without obstacles to conquer and goals to achieve. Isn't that amazing? Pretty decent statement by Maxwell Maltz. All right, human behavior. How do you respond to threat? You fight, you flight, or freeze. These are really cool concepts. If you know, okay, almost done. All right, and fight says adjust your investments to make your expected return. Adrenaline kicks in, and you're not going to back down. Right? You're just going to stay on it. Flight says take your money and move it to less risky places. You go buy stocks, go from stocks to bonds. Cortisol kicks in, and you don't want to entertain any other position. I just going to get out and run. And the next one is freeze. You freeze in spot. You don't know what to do. You don't listen to anybody else. You need help. And usually the help people will tell you is sleep on it. Do not do anything crazy today. That's freeze. All right, psychology of the market. The market behaves like a monster creature. Do you know why it has to behave like a monster creature? Because there are a million little creatures working the market. So if a lot of little people work the market, then you have a big market, big creature. All right, a good year does not mean that the market does not drop. It drops about 15% in a year, but you still make a lot of money. So do not get paranoid about daily changes in the market. Set your goals. When you reach it, sell and get out. Do not hang like that person at GameStop and wait, because you might lose it all. All right, those are things you should do. So my conclusion then, you need to know yourself, emotional and financially. Do not only think about financial goals, but emotional. Get perspective. Talk about your investments to very special people. Don't talk about it on a Friday night with people who are drinking beer. You're going to get bad advice. So you talk about it to people who you trust, who you believe can help you. Watch documentaries. Do not forget, Warren Buffett's one of our gurus, correct? And he's a good guy to follow. But there's some others. Read books. Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Nudge Improving Decisions About Health, Wealth, and Happiness. That's the Richard Thaler. He got the Nobel Prize in this kind of thinking. The Geometry of Wealth by Brian Portnoy. That's a good one. And then, of course, we have Financial Therapy. Isn't that amazing? We now have financial therapy. I like that topic. So if I were to finish with this thing here, I said psychology runs everything, including investments. Revisit your attitudes about money and understand where they came from. Then change what you have to do to reach your future goals. Remember, you link emotional and financial growth, and you need to have those goals. Do have happiness and financial wealth, and remember, each person has a different flavor, a different recipe. Does that make sense? It's not only generic for everybody. You need to find out what your combination is. So this is everything in one slide. I could have done the whole presentation here. When you're making money, you're happy, but then there's high risk, right? High risk, high money. Then when you start to go down, you get pretty pissed off and angry. Then when you come down here, you kind of, okay, I'll get back up, and then you get back up to optimism. So you go up, excitement, you get terribly bad, panic, fear. Those are the psychological words. Then when you get here, despondent, to give up, then you start all over and you go, and the cycle continues forever. So that is a real quick run of what finance and psychology will go together, and they're connected. Psychology is connected to everything else, but surely it's connected to investment. So I want to thank you guys for being here and for listening and for taking in this perspective of money from a psychological point of view. So I thank you all, and I hope to talk to you again. All right? Was that good?